Hey everyone! With the election finally upon us, SNXweave is excited to present our two-part panel-style podcast featuring this epic Spartan Council candidates. The first panel, which will be presented in this episode, includes Spartan Council candidates who have run in previous epics who are not currently on the council. The second panel, which can be listened to in the episode following this one, includes Spartan Council candidates who are currently on the council. Due to a scheduling conflict, Bojan participated in the first panel. In collaboration with you, the community, we asked our panel members a total of 10 questions that produce thoughtful responses and enthusiastic discussions. So keep listening to hear your Spartan Council candidates introduce themselves, speak to their candidacy, and answer hard-hitting questions about representing synthetics. Here now is BigPenny, Bojan, and TerraBellus. So let's hear what they had to say. So let's go ahead and get started. BigPenny, we'll be kicking off question one with you. Please briefly introduce yourself and your background within the synthetics community.
Hi, I'm BigPenny. If you're active on the Synthetics Discord server, you probably know me as one of the Synthetics Guardians. The Guardians are basically trusted users that anyone can approach for help. And my background in the synthetics community is, I joined around 2 years ago, I think, and within those 2 years, the synthetics community has grown on me quite a lot. I often go around and say that synthetics is like family to me, and this isn't really hyperbole. Due to COVID and some additional factors, I'm pretty much in quarantine since March 2020, and it looks like this will stay like this for the foreseeable future for me. And I used this time at home to forge many very close relationships within the synthetics community that I care really deeply for. And this is why I was really excited when I was asked to join the Guardians, the Synthetics Guardians. And this is also one of the reasons why I'm trying to become a Spartan Council member, because synthetics has become the most important thing in my life, and I'm trying to be involved in that at its core. And I think the Spartan Council is the perfect place to be for that. And yeah, that's pretty much summarizes it.
Thank you for sharing, BigPenny, and welcome. TerraBellus, please provide a brief introduction of yourself and your background within the synthetics community.
Okay, so I'm Terra, or TerraBellus, if you want to address me by my full name. I've been in crypto since probably about 2017, mid-2017, when I got thoroughly inculcated into the experience of investing and mucking around in the crypto scene. Like many, I lost a lot during the great crash that followed, but I stuck around kind of as one of the communities I joined while sticking around was the synthetics community. I think I started maybe early 2019 synthetics, kind of just dipping my toe in, bought some coins. But then I kind of fell into the degen trading community, which I kind of participated actively up until kind of the middle of this bull market that we're currently in, when I got kind of indoctrinated into this kind of weird secret society called D420. I consider DeFi to kind of be something that I'm especially interested within cryptocurrency, though recently I've started working as an analyst for a family fund and also a kind of an investment fund composed of various builders and founders within the DeFi space who are, sorry, not DeFi, within the crypto space, who are focusing more on social projects and DAOs. So through that role, I'm kind of dipping my feet also into the social token space. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of known as a bit of a troll at synthetics, which I don't quite know how that happened. I consider myself kind of like the sincere guy, and anything that sounds trollish is pretty tinged with satire. But yeah, I'm not going to whine about it. I don't mind wearing that cross or carrying that cross.
Well, thank you, Tara, for sharing and welcome. Bojan, first question to you. If you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself and your background within the synthetics community.
Yeah, hi, Bojan here. I've been in Spartan Council for 2 terms now, but long before that, I've been part of synthetics community since early 2018, I think, so like 3.5 years. I've been a guardian since maybe 2019, and I wrote a few SIPs for synthetics. Also inspired a few others. I was mainly interested in mechanism designs, specifically helping with front-running problems and also synth liquidity. Okay, besides that, I was studying a lot of DeFi projects, building my knowledge there, especially mechanism designs, and I was trying to find the ways to incorporate that knowledge into synthetics to make it more robust and safer.
Thank you, Bojan. Piggybacking off that, Penny, what unique experiences or views would you bring to the Spartan Council?
I've always considered myself as someone or something like a bridge builder or a force of balance. And I would have to go far afield to really explain it in detail. But what I think my role as a guardian, and in particular the specific way how I go about it, is giving me very detailed insights into the mindset of our community. I don't know how the other guardians go about this particular detail, but my DMs are open for everyone. And many members of our community make use of that regularly. And people often approach me for assistance in relation to specific governance processes or when they need help because they've got backlash when they were trying to get a specific point across. And what I've learned is that there are a lot of people that have very important input to give, but simply can't get it across properly or are afraid to get into trouble when speaking about it. And I made it my mission to speak for those people, giving their ideas a voice and a fair chance of consideration, no matter who stands on the underside of the discussion. And I have in my opinion, I've proven many times in the past that I'm not afraid to engage or oppose anyone in our community when it comes to discussions like that. And I think it's very important to not forget that synthetics is a cooperative endeavor, and we neither need a bunch of yes men nor do we need a bunch of chronic naysayers on the council. Because ultimately everything is a compromise of sorts that's the result of many different ideas, needs, and personal experiences that sometimes contradict with each other. But in the end, the goal is to create a net positive for everyone. And I have learned about myself while being in the synthetics community that I excel in exactly that, in being the one finding the middle ground in everything. And a detail that some people might not know about me is that I already served on the Spartan Council for a short time back when we still had liquid democracy. And until some months ago, we had an alumni policy which allowed me to continue participating in the Spartan Council, albeit without voting rights, of course. And this is why I have experience in both how the Spartan Council works in practice, as well as in how to constructively engage in the governance process as a whole. And so I will be able to effectively assume my responsibilities as a Spartan Council member from the first day on and starting to build bridges, creating a balance of interest within our community, and be like 100% from the first day on.
Thank you, Penny. Very thoughtful response, particularly your comments about your open door policy in a virtual workspace. Tara, this question will go to you next. What unique experiences or views would you bring to the Spartan Council if elected?
Well, unlike Penny, I didn't get a free ride on the Spartan Council, like a trial period. So I would be coming at it with completely unexperienced, untainted persona. I guess that is indicative of one of my major qualities, and that is that comment is that I'm willing to complain and point things out as being inadequate or not necessarily as they should be. So while I believe in building bridges, I'm also perfectly willing to undermine them before they are rebuilt stronger than ever. In terms of unique qualities or experiences, unlike many people on the council, perhaps now I'm not really in a kind of tech background. I did a PhD in the social sciences, so I have a research experience and I know how to conduct analysis and make judgments based on thorough analysis. So I believe that will be a quality that I'll bring to it, but it will be more of a humanistic bent. It won't necessarily be motivated by numbers. It will be more motivated by a more holistic appreciation for what's in the best interests of all the synthetics community, rather than just purely the protocol itself. Another quality I think I bring is, despite this bull market, I'm not yet rich enough to retire. And so I need that stipend and I need to remain motivated. I need to stick to improving synthetics so I can ditch my bags and ride off into the sunset.
Thanks, Tara. So I want to open the floor briefly to a discussion about team composition. What sort of diversity in skill sets or perspectives do you believe are necessary to make up the ideal Spartan Council?
Can we just chime in?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Tara touched on that, upon that a little bit in his response, and I think what we already have in abundance on the Spartan Council are technically talented people who have deep knowledge about smart contracts, who have deep knowledge about financial mechanics, about math especially. And we have people who have, with Kane especially, we have people who know how to lead a group and something like that. But what I think also is necessary and very important part on for the Spartan Council is the social aspect, and as Tara already said, even the ability to dissent. And from my experience within the council, I must say, people are, of course, able to dissent, but sometimes this is at least something that I get feedback on when I'm talking mostly in DM with people approaching me, is that it sometimes looks like it's too harmonic. There's too little discussion, public discussion at least, or too little dissent, and this is something.
And there's also the trouble that they're not motivated to. I mean, many of the current Spartan Council have already become incredibly wealthy. Kane, obviously, prime example of this. And so the actual motivation for participating on a day-to-day basis in the conversations that the community should really have an exposure to isn't there. I mean, if you can spend your time in other ways, it's perhaps easy to do so if you can afford to. But yeah, greater motivation motivated by the thing that blockchain is built on, which is financial incentives, makes sense to me.
Yeah, and the willingness and the motivation to engage with the community directly, and to, I know it's difficult sometimes to get a lot of annoying responses every day. As a guardian, I can vouch for that. I think you can ask Freak; he can vouch for that even way more than anyone else. But this is just part of the grind, and I think I don't want to criticize the Spartan Council too much on that. We can say everyone has to bring every quality to the table, but I think this is rather unrealistic. People have different strengths and weaknesses, and this is why I say we need the technical and the mathematical and the financial prowess that we already have on the council, but we are so severely lacking the social and the community interaction and the listening to and talking to and engaging with the community part. And yeah, this is maybe something that both you and me can provide when we are voted into.
Yeah. Poor Spreek. I mean, God knows he tries with customer support.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you guys. Yeah, we need more of those. That's the social aspect in Spartan Council, a bridge between Spartan Council and the whole community.
Thank you, guys. Some excellent discussion. Moving on to question 3. In your own words, please explain what you believe to be your responsibility or obligations as a council member of the community if elected. Tara, why don't you start us off with your response to question 3?
I guess to read and assess SIPs and SCCPs to ascertain if they increase the value of the coin as well as the volume on the protocol, value being a measure of success vis-a-vis the token holders, and volume being a measure of popularity of the protocol itself. And I suppose they should also be always willing to deviate from the party line. Actually, one of the major responsibilities they have is to do something about the name Quenta, because, I mean, it's probably been over a year now, and I can't understand why, for all the authority they have, they still haven't done something about that name.
What would you change it to?
Oh, I'd probably, first of all, change it for a short period to the one that was suggested in that two-choice poll. What was it, something like IPDEX or something? I think maybe we could even kind of return to that forum and see what suggestions were made and then ignored during that vote.
Thank you, Tara. Bojan, question 3 to you. In your own words, please explain what you believe to be your responsibility and obligation as a sitting Spartan Council member.
Yeah, I think my main obligation would be to protect the interest of all parties involved in synthetics, but primarily interest of SNX holders and synth holders. But besides that, also protect the interest of all the protocols that decide to integrate synthetics into their products offerings. Yeah, so that consists mainly on finding potential exploits in some mechanism design that could get because of which SNX stakers could get wrecked. So yeah, I think that would be some of my, at least as I see my main
We need to get
responsibility.
Caleb back to work.
Sorry?
We need to make sure Caleb has at least
he's
19 hours of wakefulness a day.
Yeah, but he's still very involved with the protocol. We have
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, he's been a major first line of defense for a long time now.
He still is. Yeah, he's great.
Thank you, guys. Penny, if you could go ahead and respond to this question, please.
I just want to preface one thing about the Quenta name. I agree that I'm also not, so I kind of warmed up a little bit to it, but I was opposed to the name, and if I had to say in it, I would change it as well. But I think with Quenta splitting off from synthetics, the naming convention or the responsibility for the name has already, or if not, will shift over to Quenta and the Quenta Council in the future. So it may be something.
You know, for 6 months, if you Googled Quenta, you'd get Quenta Walang, which was like worthless in Tagalog. It was crazy. I was like, how the hell did that get past marketing?
I argued with Kane in length about this, and I had my conspiracy theories about it. But yeah, that's one thing.
Funny thing, I was the one that gave Quenta, that came up with the Quenta name.
Okay, you're the one responsible.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
It's a Lord of the Rings thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and to answer the question, I think we already touched upon that in the answers or in the discussion before, and now everything has already been said, but I reiterate it. So as an elected Spartan Council member, my objective is to represent the synthetics community as a whole and to to make the synthetics a more successful, more profitable, and more accessible project for both the stakers and the traders. We're in kind of in an interesting between the chair situation that stakers are really the foundation of our project, but in the end, the product has to also appeal to traders, because they are the ones who are creating the fees that we are giving out as rewards. And this requires, as already stated, active participation in the governance process, which is probably a topic we are talking about later, and also engagement with the synthetics community, active engagement with the synthetics community.
Perfect. Thank you, Penny. Moving along to question 4. Penny, this one will go to you first. What do you want to see achieved by the Council in the short to mid-term as well as the long term for the synthetics protocol? And what will your contribution be?
So I think this is one of the most interesting questions probably. It's right now, the absolute most important goal to achieve is the complete transition to layer 2 optimistic Ethereum, because I think that the continued high gas fees for both stakers and traders alike is the central detrimental factor which holds synthetic back for months. And I'm convinced that if we were already feature complete on optimistic Ethereum, and if optimistic Ethereum would have been available earlier, everyone's mood would be a whole lot better, and we would quite frankly had quite a few more multimillionaires among our SNX stakers. I'm really sure about that. And the Spartan Council has the power to direct the core contributors by prioritizing specific objectives. And my contribution would be that I would heavily prioritize all objectives that must be completed for a swift transition to L2. And this would, for example, encompass the unification of the debt pools, to make the synth on L2 and L1 fungible with each other, which means that you are able to transfer them freely between each L1 and L2. And beyond that, I consider synthetic futures with high leverage and shorting to be a central set of features to create higher volume trades on the synthetics platform. Long term, we should give more incentives to stake SNX without resorting to inflation or dilution. And I think one important puzzle piece for that is the new liquidation mechanism that's precast designed, where SUSD is minted to liquidate delinquent wallets, and the freed SNX is then distributed to active stakers as compensation. We should also work towards more use cases for synthetic assets, and I'm sure that cooperating with our spin-off projects like Lyra, Talis, or Quenta, or even Aelin can bring many profitable opportunities in that regard. But we should also, beyond that, put a greater focus onto integrating with other projects. And to make a more recent example, the liquidity pools created by Lyra on L2 have demonstrated how correct or cleverly designed incentives can have a very positive impact on the SNX price, despite the temporary SUSD pack issues that were caused by that, which quite frankly were only the result of the low SNX and SUSD availability on L2 right now. And I already said it today in the SNX trading channel. The moment when the majority of the SNX has moved to L2, those pack issues won't be a thing anymore, and then we would be free to indulge ourselves in many similar liquidity pools and liquidity farming incentives and such.
Thank you, Penny. Very important points there. Bojan, question 4 to you. What do you see in the short, medium, and long term in terms of your vision for the synthetics protocol, and what will your contribution be?
Yeah, I don't know what else to say after such an answer from Penny. He basically covered it all. Yeah, but I'll just add for short term. I think this SUSD shortage we have now on Optimism, I see it as the most urgent issue that needs to be solved. I hope we will find some solution soon there, so that we don't. Yeah, because Lyra is having a problem because of SUSD being so expensive.
$1.15 it was today.
Yeah, 15% premium. Yeah, for stablecoin, it's quite crazy. Yeah. So yeah, besides that, I think Penny covered it pretty well. I wouldn't like to repeat. Yeah, just to add my contribution would be in that I would look out that those solutions are done in a safe manner so that we don't have some problem. We don't create some problems for our SNX stakers on L1 or L2.
Thank you, Bojan. Tara, question 4 to you. Please share your short, medium, and long-term vision for the Synthetics protocol and what your contribution to that would be.
Yeah, like Bojan, I have to agree that Penny's answer was pretty succinct. I guess my contribution would be that I do it slightly faster and slightly more efficiently. Beyond that, I would turn on more rewards for shorting on the system because I've been missing those the last few months.
What do you propose to add efficiency to that process?
I would say things faster and type things in a way that elaborates on the point more clearly.
Okay, thank you, Tara, and thank you to the group for your responses to question 4. For question 5, we're going to be discussing the 3-month epoch. Do you believe the 3-month epoch is effective for all DAOs and councils to be able to achieve longer-term objectives? Does this allow for the continuity of vision and execution? And should the serving term or epochs be slightly increased? Question 5 will go to Tara first.
As we all know, crypto moves very fast, so if anything, I would lessen the length of these epochs. I would have more turnaround so that we had less time for people to settle into roles, that there's greater pressure for people to maintain their engagement with the important points that are being discussed by the Spartan Council. I mean, we saw between the end of last year and the beginning of this year, something like a 10 times increase in the market cap of the entire crypto space. So longer than 3 months is something I wouldn't even consider.
So how do you respond to the idea that a potential shorter epoch might reduce engagement levels?
But I imagine that if we have an effective council that is engaging with the community in a reasonable way, that will contribute to greater participation on the part of the community.
Bojan, how do you respond to question 5?
Yeah, I think 3-month epochs are perfectly fine for Spartan Council. Maybe not so for Treasury Council. I believe they should have longer epochs there, at least maybe 6 months or even more, because we don't need the frequent change there. But for Spartan Council, I think it's good because, yeah, as Tara said, it creates puts pressure on council members to be more efficient and to achieve more.
Thank you, Bojan. You make some excellent points. Penny, question 5 to you. Please share your comments on the 3-month epoch and whether you believe it should be changed or not.
So maybe to preface it, in the beginning when we were starting to roll out the governance process, I was among those people that was the most vocal and most persistent defender of the liquid democracy model, which meant that you could, there were no epochs, so you could fluently change your vote within every day if you wanted, or every hour. And to be honest, I have changed my opinion on that after my experiences, the experiences I've made both on and off the council. And I think I agree with Bojan that I think the 3-month epoch is a pretty good compromise, because I understand the notion behind the question, but I simply disagree with the idea that a 3-month epoch stands in the way of a long-term vision or objective or alignment of a Spartan Council member. If the SNX stakers consider a specific council member's work or vision to be worthwhile, there's nothing that stops them from voting in that particular member repeatedly. And this is already happening. There are members among the Spartan Council that have been members from the first election on, and they will be re-elected this election and the coming
Rightly or wrongly.
elections to come. This is the decision of the token holders ultimately, and there are other things to consider because, as Terra already said, time is moving fast in crypto and especially in DeFi. And having a 3-month epoch allows SNX stakers to make adjustments to people they have voted on into the Spartan Council, besides diluting. By the way, dilution, a very important mechanism that's really underused in our community and something that we should highlight more and bring more to the foreground. Dilution is, but dilution ultimately is only useful if you're disagreeing with a single or a few decisions of the person you have voted into the council. But if you have, if it turns out that the person you've voted onto the council is inadequate or lost alignment, it's important to be able to replace them. And I think the 3-month epoch is a nice compromise that says it's long enough to effectively work on the council, but it's short enough to make adjustments soon enough, just to say. And one thing more on the human side that nobody has touched on until right now is that nominating yourself for a spot on the Spartan Council is a considerable commitment, both in time and responsibility. And especially time moves on, life changes, and especially people who not yet live exclusively from their crypto earnings know that all too well. And some Spartan Council members have decided to not nominate themselves for the upcoming epoch, and it's a good thing that they were able to do so, because if we're stretching epochs too long, we risk that people either become hesitant to nominate themselves because they can't reliably commit themselves for the full epoch's duration, and we run risk that people who want to participate and are fully aligned but simply unexpectedly can't anymore commit themselves to the ongoing epoch get stuck inside the council for a prolonged time. And so I say I'm really completely fine with this 3-month compromise, and I would keep it the way it is.
Thank you all for your responses. It seems as though we have some consensus in the idea that the 3-month epoch should not be extended, given the pace at which crypto moves. Moving on to question 6, Bojan, where do you see the Synthetics protocol fitting into the DeFi space going forward?
Yeah, I think I see Synthetics protocol as a core building block in DeFi. And I'm certain more and more protocols will integrate Synthetics to harness its power, which allows them to have lots of big trades with minimal possible fee, which they cannot be found anywhere else. Yeah, we have seen some of those like D-Hedge, but also which was very interesting to me was Curve protocol. That integrated Synthetics to use in their cross-asset pools, which allowed huge trades to happen with minimal slippage. Yeah, and we will see later how will it progress and what products can it show to DeFi community.
Thank you, Bojan. Penny, floor is yours for question 6. Where do you see the Synthetics protocol fitting into the DeFi space going forward?
I think Bojan has demonstrated something that I talked about in the first question or the second question, is because my answer will be very different to because my answer is that Synthetics is effectively the leader in decentralized governance right now already. And when you're looking, especially on crypto Twitter and stuff like that, you're seeing that you can see that other projects have started to take note of that and are starting to copying our governance model, or at least build upon our experiences. And I think that Synthetics will continue to innovate how decentralized governance is both structured and organized. And for example, the decommission of the SDAO and the treasury, the introduction of the treasury DAO, which is being elected on, and if this is going out before, I don't know when it's going out, but if it's going out today or tomorrow, please people apply for the treasury DAO. this is something where we are iterating on and making it and could continue to be the leader in decentralization. And people might ask themselves right now, what do I care about decentralization and decentralized governance for? And my answer to that is censorship resistance, because many people perceive censorship resistance as something purely technical. But that's only half the truth. The other half is organization, making sure that there's not a single point of failure on the personnel or staff side of things. So making sure that quite literally everyone is replaceable and the project continues no matter who has to step down, may it be voluntarily or involuntarily. And Kane actually did step away from synthetics for some time, and yes, there were some issues on the core contributor side, but beyond that, overall, synthetics continued to work quite nicely. And I think we will iterate further on that front and make synthetics more resilient, or the most resilient project out there. And this is especially important in a time like right now, where regulators are starting to aggressively entering the DeFi and the crypto space. And to make a very recent example, Coinbase has just scrapped their plans to launch their lending product after the SEC has voiced their concerns over it. So they didn't even get to start with it and already scrapped it. And this is something that will happen more and more to each and every centralized exchange out there and every centralized service and product out there. And yeah, and this is something where we will have an enormous edge above everyone else, even in the DeFi space, because we will be the most decentralized and most censorship resistant project out there. And to also go more on the business side of things is that I think that we will continue to be the biggest decentralized derivatives platform, and we will provide the foundation for projects like Tails, Quenta, and Lyra to aggressively cut into the market of market share of centralized services and exchanges. And the beautiful thing about that is that with every trade they are doing, and with every trade other projects that we are integrating into, we are earning fees, or the SNX stakers will be earning fees. And ultimate goal is that one day the fee rewards will far outpace the SNX rewards. And this is, for me, a metric if we are succeeding in the space. And I want to work towards that goal.
Thank you, Penny. Yeah, certainly the regulatory trends are going to be important to monitor over the coming months and years. Tara, question 6 to you. Where do you see the synthetics protocol fitting into the DeFi space going forward?
Well, I don't necessarily share BigPenny's opinion of governance being considered a particular, or synthetics governance to be a particular bastion of good governance within the crypto space. It was really a narrative I first started hearing around the time when Kane came back from his kind of spell in the wild, which always struck me as a little strange. And regarding whether governance has an impact on kind of shielding synthetics from the kind of action that Coinbase has suffered, to be honest, I think it may largely be down to the fact that synthetics doesn't currently do enough volume to attract that kind of attention. I think it's a bit of a meme, but the notion that there's just 4 or 5 or maybe 20 or 25 traders who are largely propping up large trade volume on the protocol is one for a reason. And kind of to lead into what I think would be the multi-chain the protocol's ideal fit into the DeFi space, it would be kind of functioning in the role that it first introduced itself as, which is a trading platform that has good liquidity based on the synthetic mechanism that it is built upon. And hopefully once that is effectively in place, layer 2, if it is ever in place on layer 2 properly, that will draw people to it.
Thank you, Tara. Thoughtful responses from all of you. Coming into the home stretch, we have question 7, which is, what do you think synthetics multi-chain strategy should be? Question 7 will go to Penny first.
Okay. This is a loaded question because this is coming from all questions come from the community, from the sheet that was posted, right?
Yes, they did.
I really want to know who asked that question. But okay. My answer to this. Who? VFAT was it? Okay. Okay, he's a clever guy. My answer to this is that synthetics is on Ethereum and synthetics is on optimistic Ethereum. And we will move our focal point towards optimistic Ethereum, but synthetics won't deploy on any other chain in the foreseeable future. And there is very good reason for that. But I give you a chance to reply to that. But I think what many fail to realize is that synthetics is very different to your average DeFi project that simply collects some tokens inside a pool or a vault and cranks out rewards to everyone. We are actually minting and burning tokens or synths, which are connected to a dApp pool, which is shared among all SNX stakers. So we can't just deploy on Arbitrum, for example, because the tokens minted on Arbitrum won't be fungible with the tokens minted on Ethereum. And to again explain it, fungible means that the tokens on one chain are interchangeable with tokens on another chain. And the lack of fungibility is something that people on optimistic Ethereum are currently experiencing. The SUSD minted on L2 can't be moved to L1, and vice versa. And why? Because they are backed by two separate dApp pools, and one of the ginormous tasks in front of the core contributors is to merge or sync those two separate dApp pools with each other, which isn't a trivial task. Absolutely not. But it's the prerequisite to make the synth on both Ethereum and optimistic Ethereum fungible. So other than Aave or 1H, for example, we can't just say send it. We are on 5, on 10, on 20 different chains at the same time. It's simply not feasible, and in my personal opinion, not necessary for synthetics to be on many different chains. When we have successfully moved our operations to optimistic Ethereum, I don't see what the benefits would be, because the gas fees on optimistic Ethereum will continue to shrink, and services like Hop and other bridges make instant withdrawals possible, and it will become cheaper in the future. And this is something that we would have to discuss with the core contributors because it's a technical question. If for some reason there's a huge demand for synthetic assets on Arbitrum, for example, we should rather work together with services, for example, like Hop, to create some kind of wrapped token which wraps synthetic assets and then that are available on Arbitrum, for example. But I could imagine that there are that there are problems with that in case we're decommissioning synth and stuff like that. So this is something that would have to be discussed on a technical note. But right now I don't see any reason other than gas is too expensive on L1. For people asking why we are not deploying on chain X epsilon or sidechain X epsilon or L2 layer 2 X epsilon, and optimistic Ethereum will fix this, and we're in the process of doing that.
Thank you, Penny. Tara, it seemed like you had something you wanted to respond directly to Penny with, so please go ahead and answer question 7 along with your response to Penny.
So I guess a year ago we set ourselves on this trajectory towards only optimism because it requires a lot of work apparently to kind of look at different chains at the same time. But then if you go to vfat.tools and you look at the site, the top of the site, up there you'll see all the other chains that will give better network effect. And within that list of sidechains and parachains and L2s, you will not find optimism. Optimism, I believe, was, it was face meltingly fast, perhaps, in terms of the speeds it gave in transactions in January, but it's not been meltingly fast in terms of coming to market. And so therefore, I have been thoroughly kind of annoyed with the progress that's been made in L2. And I'm not one to kind of stick to something just because you've already committed a position on it. It should be something that would be open to negotiation. And I think these negotiations should have been happening around February when the first delays were occurring, and kind of conversations should be had, and the party line shouldn't have been towed in quite the way it seems to have been. But then when you have a dictator, a benevolent dictator, kind of stating on Twitter that optimism is going to be the second coming of blockchain, it's very difficult to then have those conversations. So yeah, it's a kind of ill-stated, complex opinion that is probably better said in text. But yeah, my relationship with synthetics and L2 has not been a particularly happy one.
Thank you, Terra. Bojan, you go ahead and take this. Question 7. What do you think synthetics multi-chain strategy should be?
Yeah, well, I'm quite certain future will be multi-chain. So I think it makes sense that synthetics is present on multiple chains, but there is a bit of difference because I believe its core mechanism that is staking a debt, it should stay only on one chain, let's say optimism. But exchange functionality should be allowed on different chains. So you could exchange SETH into SUSD on Arbitrum or some other chain. Yeah, I think that's probably the best strategy. So to keep a debt pool on one chain, but exchange functionality on multiple chains.
Yeah, that's basically what I said, because
Yeah,
you're in a
that, right?
have you talked about this, Bojan? Because it's really interesting. Do you have to somehow wrap the synth, or could you just
no wrapping what you mentioned about hop? It's just to send synths between chains. I'm talking about only exchange from one synth to another.
Okay.
You don't need to wrap.
Thank you, guys. Excellent points. Moving on to question 8. Which synthetics products do you believe should be focused on or prioritized that will drive the most amount of transaction volume in the future? Terra, question 8 will go to you first.
Trading, viewless trading. So yeah, I guess optimism, get that working.
All right, Bojan, floor is yours for question 8.
Well, I think it's easy one. It's definitely perps, perpetual futures. We are waiting so long for those. I think they will drive most of volume on synthetics. I'm certain it will.
Thank you, Bojan. Penny?
Yeah, I think we already talked about this. So my opinion is, I already said it. It's futures and high leverage, really high leverage, and shorting. And I also want to repeat that I think that I disagree with Terra on that our censorship resistance is something that in the long run will drive people to us, because many other users, especially from the USA, for example, won't have any other option other than to trade on us, because they will be more and more locked out from all the other exchanges, especially from the centralized exchanges. But a sad trend that we are witnessing on right now is that more and more decentralized projects are starting to block US IP addresses, for example, already, and this is something that on one hand concerns me a lot, and I'm not happy. I'm really disappointed about that. But on the other hand, is an opportunity for us to welcome those people that are locked out from those other exchanges, and I think this will drive more volume to us as well. On L2, of course, because as we can't do any of this on layer 1. It's all happening on L2, of course.
Thank you, guys. So we're going to open up these last 2 questions for discussion. 9 is, do you think low governance participation is an issue? And if so, how should it be addressed? For instance, in the last Spartan Council election voting process, staker participation was only about 5%.
I can then I just jump in because this is a question that's really close to me as someone who relies on smaller to mid-sized votes. In my opinion, low governance participation is never a good thing, and everyone who stakes SNX has a say in governance and should exercise this right. And I often hear from people saying to me that their vote won't have make any difference anyway, and I disagree with that because for example, in the last election, I was only 2 weighted depth points short of being voted onto the Spartan Council, and of course, small stakers can't swing a vote all by themselves, but if all the small stakers would actually vote, their combined weight would have a rather significant impact. And it doesn't cost gas. L2 voting has been activated since last election as well. So everyone, no matter where they are staking, is able to vote. And I'm also encouraging everyone to also vote for the other DAOs. Treasury Council is the new one, but also GDAO and the ambassadors, they have gotten way too few votes in the last election. And they are very important governance bodies that do really great things. And they should be legitimized by as many voters as possible. And I don't know if someone wants to jump in, because otherwise I would explain what I think is the problem or one of the root causes of the low participation. And I mentioned earlier in this panel that I want to improve accessibility. And when I said accessibility, I wasn't just talking about gas costs or fees and stuff like that. I was talking about making the Spartan Council easier to approach and making being actually available for and listening to input given by the community. And this is something where I find or I see myself in this. I think this will be my main role in the Spartan Council if I'm voted onto the council, building this bridge between the Spartan Council and the community. And sometimes I have the feeling that people forget a very important detail about our governance process, and this is that every single member of the Spartan Council has been put there by the SNX stakers, and ultimately all power originates from the SNX stakers. And so you have
What's the vote weight of the Spartan Council combined, I wonder, though? I mean, if you tot up the vote weight of the Spartan Council themselves, I imagine it's a pretty large portion of the SNX holders, right?
This is, I don't know, because I think that especially the OGs have multiple
Kane has a few.
Yeah, we have Kane there. So
Kane has quite a few wallets, and not all of them are public. So it's hard to say, but of course
I
wouldn't say per se that everyone on the council or the council is only voting themselves on. I think the OGs, the original stakers who started staking from the beginning on, of course, have a very strong influence on who is elected. But I think they have we after all we have quadratic voting, and the only probably the largest reason why the OGs are still so dominant when it comes to voting people onto the council is because all the smaller voters aren't actually going to vote and giving their votes, because as I said, someone like me who is relying heavily on small to mid-sized votes is really, I'm really always surprised how much even small SNX stakers, how much of a difference they make each of their votes because of the quadratic formula we are using. And I think the what you are pointing or hinting at would be a way smaller problem if people would actually go to vote. And I think one reason is that people are still convinced that their vote is both important, won't make a change, which is wrong, and because they think that their input isn't valid. And maybe we have to a little bit with Kane on the. I think the last election has showed that it's Kane has a huge following, and if you put Kane, depending on where you put Kane, you can could put him on the GDAO, for example, and suddenly you would have the most votes on the GDAO. I'm sure of that. So this is something like the following which we should address, but you can't in the end because it's their free choice who they're voting for.
Are the council chambers still actively used? I mean, are they designed to be used, that channel? Because it's the top of the list on the governance, and I noticed that since June 5th, there's not been a single conversation that has taken place there. And assuming that is kind of meant to be a forum through which the community is able to observe the workings of the governance system.
It's for first and foremost to engage with each other, to have directly discuss those topics which are posted publicly. We have a lot of bots that are posting what's on the table right now, and for people to engage with them.
Kane hasn't spoken in there once, has he?
I don't know. I have to look that up.
Like, I mean, if the desire is to encourage community participation in governance, that governance has to take place publicly. And if the council chambers was started as an attempt to be a public forum that could at least be observed, perhaps it's not necessary for people to comment in there. But if the intention was for the chambers to be a means of peeking in and seeing what governance is doing in the background, then it's an abject failure that since the last, or throughout this entire epoch, there hasn't been a single conversation amongst the Spartan Council within that chamber.
That's right, and I think maybe we can't speak, or we can't treat this in absolute. So not everything can be discussed in a public space, because there are things like someone has noticed we have a vulnerability and that has to be addressed rather quickly, and we need an SIP or an SSCP has to be written and passed rather quickly so that it doesn't get exploited. This is something where I think, okay, this can be in a closed space, and the documents and the decisions and everything is public, and we should have a post-mortem after such things. This is maybe something that could be improved.
There must have been a lot of exploits that emerged since.
I wanted to touch upon this, and we. Oh, okay, Bojan can chime in on this, and I think we should. Really incorporate a process that says everything is per default public, as long as we don't have agreed upon that this is okay, maybe this isn't too aggressive approach, but something like that where we say we make as much public as possible, and maybe we can with a default exception mode, or we can find some other modus to do it. But I agree completely with you, and this is something what I said: accessibility, talking, engaging in the community, subjecting yourself to the horrors of having 200 people going on you, onto you, and attacking you. Yeah, and having to explain yourself. But Bojan, explain that. We had a lot of exploits in the last couple of months.
Yeah, there were situations where it would be really bad for SNX taker to share those in open, because there are lots of eyes looking, those searching for exploits. And in that situation, it's much safer to keep it in a closed channel.
Yeah, I
don't
agree
think there's
with
any
you.
temptation that after those situations have been resolved, that those conversations remain closed. Because I mean, statistically,
I mean, you can see. Yeah.
I mean, I imagine what has largely happened is that the conversations were taking place more publicly around like December of last year, when Spartan Council first kicked off, and gradually, as the council has become more entrenched and chummy, those conversations have probably shifted more into private channels that don't necessarily have the same exposure to the community. And that has obviously contributed to a detachment from the community, which has led to lower participation in the elections.
To be honest, the 5% number. This is the number of voters participating. It's not the weighted depth, because we had a vote to claim policy or mechanism in place. So you had to vote to be able to claim your rewards. And this can't be weighted depth. 5% weighted depth. It must have been 5% of the stakers have voted, right?
Yes, I believe that's 5% of the community as a whole, not
Okay.
not a weighted 5%.
Yeah, so it's a small the vast majority, the small stakers that always think they're in a minority or they're not important. If you're looking at this, if those make 95% of the community of the stakers, I would say if we could even half of them activate and motivate to vote, our governance would look quite differently.
Absolutely. Part of what we hope to achieve by hosting these panels is to bring more visibility to the Spartan Council candidates as well as the voting process.
Like if I go to staking.synthetics.gov/SNXgov.eth, I can only seem to see one page of governance proposals. It doesn't allow me to scroll to any others. So it seems there's something of a pervasive lack of public access to some of the stuff that's going on. I'm sure you can go to other sources. I think greater effort expended on making sure that these are easily accessible would be useful.
Yeah, they are. There's our pages on with sips.synthetics.io where you have all SIPs, SIPs, and the same for SCCPs. And yeah, this is something that should.
That's not built into the same
exactly
kind of
that
UI
should.
as the rest.
I think there was some problem with UI. I think it was refreshed not so long ago.
Yeah. So this is something else that we could learn from other projects to make like our and this is something that has already done with the move away from Minter, is to make this site the hub for everything. So you're not just going there to stake or to vote, like integrating the stats into the site where maybe there's just integrated right now, but to really consolidate everything on this page. And yeah, this is something where some front-end designers have to rack their brains about how to really accomplish that.
Thank you, everybody. Your points on transparency are well taken. We have one more question. Again, this is open for discussion for the group. How do you think individuals on the Spartan Council should be measured with regards to participation and performance? And specifically for you, Bojan, is there an internal feedback process where non-performance or participation can be addressed?
I don't think there is any, except for taking notes who is present on weekly syncs and then SIP's presentation. I don't think we have any measure there. It's quite flexible, being in the Spartan Council.
Yeah. But this is something really, this is taking off directly from the question before that and from what we are saying about the SIPs and SCCPs being on the page. That's interesting. I didn't know that it's that you have started documenting, taking notes on who is participating, and this is something that I want to make public so that the voters, the stakers, can see who is participating in public and private meetings, who is actually voting on SIPs and SCCPs, and so they have some kind of a metric, because this is you have some kind of metric to measure the involvement of or the engagement of a Spartan Council member. And maybe I think that there are times where there's good reason why somebody is absent. Without I won't make any specific examples, but there were
House
times.
viewings, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
there were times when I was still present where someone was missing some meetings and they had really good reason to do so. And this is something that maybe with a comment field or some way giving the Spartan Council member to make a small comment explaining why they are missing. And this would, admittedly, this would only cover a baseline engagement participation level. So like the minimum you should do as a Spartan Council member. And beyond that, it's difficult because I think you would all agree that being on a in a governance body doing the work that the Spartan Council is doing involves many tasks, many activities that are hard to express in numbers, in cold hard numbers. And so we should have at least this participation metric to be available for everyone to have at least some kind of accountability.
For sure. Anybody else have anything to add as far as ideas for keeping the Spartan Council accountable to their duty to serve the community?
It would be nice if nominees were able to debate directly with incumbents rather than being sequestered in their own special chat. Apologies to Bojan, obviously he's here, but yeah, that's one means of having them measured, having them engage in actual conversations rather than us talking amongst ourselves whilst they carry on their merry way.
But I enjoyed this format. I must admit, I think that this format has its place, and I would like it to stay where it is. Maybe something like that could be added, like those separated and then one combined. But
yeah, but I've never spoken directly to Kane, and I wouldn't mind having a chat with him.
Very well. Did you try it? Because even when I was very new in synthetics, I was going at Kane, and I think most of it is lost to time. But I had like,
I don't know, man. I'm kind of shy, and he's quite the silver fox. So I don't know if I'd
you
be able
are
to...
not shy. You're a jokester. But you can talk to Kane. You just have to do it. Really. You can even I don't want to say it publicly, but
to be honest,
you can
it's
even
really
DM
sweet.
him and
he's
responding, so he's really accessible.
Or Danny, maybe.
So I won't agree with you when you're saying that Kane, you can't talk to Kane. You can talk to Kane, and when you poke him at the right places, then he starts to write. And I bet if you're suggesting to talk to him, he will talk to you as well. In voice. And quite frankly, if some people on Twitter, for example, are actually doing that, they are provoking him, and then you have a public discussion. So if you want it, just do it, because you are someone who knows how to rile up people, and I'm sure you know how to rile up Kane. So,
I mean, he riled me up pretty bad dropping the F-bombs on Twitter about optimism. that really got me.
I really want to have this discussion between you and Kane happening. Yeah,
Sorry, Bojan, you go ahead.
Sorry.
How are you going to measure yourself?
Oh, I don't know. How to answer that, yeah.
Thank you all for your thoughts on maintaining accountability and monitoring performance of Spartan Council members. This brings us to the end of the panel interview. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Thanks for listening. Be sure to listen to the second part of SNXweave's panel-style podcast in the next episode. The voting period is now open, so be sure to get your votes in before September 30th. The full list of Spartan Council candidates includes Afif, B. Barker, BigPenny, Bojan, Daniel, Justin, Kane, Caleb, Michael, Synthaman, and TerraBellus. Don't forget to also cast your ballots for the Grants DAO, the Ambassador DAO, and the newly formed Treasury Council. Until next time, this is SNXweave.